Hey guys, all right, we're back with state of COVID lockdown in Hawaii. So, as far as I don't have any photos for today because I didn't really do anything today. Just stayed home, did some work. Um, what did I do? Did I watch anything? I'm kind of bummed. I finished season 2 of Cobra Kai, and that was really good. Um, Caught up on Raised by Wolves, so we'll be talking about the episode 5, which is the latest episode. Oh, I did start watching um, The Boys on Amazon Prime. So season 2 is out, and the end of season 1 left you with a cliffhanger where Homelander uh, took well he killed the head person. I forget what her name is in the show. It's kind of like his mother, so he ends up killing her and framing Butcher uh, as the murderer. And then he takes Butcher. So Butcher thinks his wife is dead, um, but actually Homelander had abducted her, and so the company is keeping her hidden. And he's Butcher's not supposed to know that she's alive, but for whatever reason, Homelander abducts Butcher and takes him to see his wife, and then that's how it ends. So it's kind of like a shock ending. So this season kind of picks up where that one left off, and it's that show is not for kids. So, and actually I don't know. Raised by Wolves, that I mean it's kind of gruesome, um, but it's not filled with violence. So I don't know. Kids might be able to watch it. It's like really young kids might have a hard time with it because it's very sci-fi-ish. Heck, a lot of adults might have a hard time with it. But yeah, The Boys is definitely not for kids. If you let your kids watch The Boys, hate to say you're a bad parent. I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's rated R, and there's a lot of adult um, uh, negative things in there. So, but yeah, it's fun to watch though if you're into that whole superhero genre shows. So anyway, yeah, that's what I did today. Um, Ended up going out for Zippies tonight, and what did I have for lunch? Lunch was just actually I didn't even eat lunch today. So yeah, I just stayed home. I'm not sure about this weekend. So this weekend we have the beaches are open, the parks are open, the trails are open, but you can only do it solo. So I'm kind of wondering to see how that goes this weekend. If a lot of people end up going, if groups start to go, they're telling us that the COVID enforcement team is going to be out and about enforcing the rules. A lot of people have a lot of feelings about that. It's kind of a, for me personally, it's a silly rule. It makes absolutely no sense. Um, I don't, like enforcement. I don't see how you can enforce it, and it's just silly. I mean, and it's unsafe, especially if you're gonna open up the trails. Like people should not be hiking by themselves, right? There's so many. You're so far away from help, and if something happens, you're kind of just screwed, right? Um, a lot of places you might not even get cell phone reception, um, and yeah, it's just kind of silly that you can't go out by yourself. They did make an exception, though. I heard that if you have a disability or something, uh, you can have a an assistant or a caregiver uh, be out there with you. But for the rest of us, like who's right? I don't know. I mean, if you're going exercising, that's fine. You'll probably be by yourself anyway. Um, but yeah, if you're gonna sit on the beach, you're probably not gonna sit on the beach by yourself, right? But that's the rule. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, let's go to the update. And this is just for me personally. I try to keep track of the cases, um, so that when they do make decisions like opening and closing things, um, I kind of understand better like why they're doing it. So that's why I, kind of follow follow the cases whenever they announce the case numbers. So let's see. Today is September the 11th. We have 167 new COVID-19 cases. And so we're kind of hovering around that number, right? 160 something, 160. We've been getting deaths like daily. So the DOH yesterday said, hey, look, the numbers are going down. Things are looking good. Not really. Like every day, I don't know. I don't know. Let me, I don't even know if they even show it as far as like mortality, or I don't know, what is it, morbidity, or I don't know what the term is. I mean, we're at point just under 1% death rate, but that's, what is that, 7-day average? So I don't know, but I mean we've been getting deaths every day. Let's see. So there were 3,500 tests conducted with a 4.7% positive rate. Right, 167. 7-day average 142. I don't know. This needs to be like down here, right? Or at least kind of like right here on July 1st, where it's well under 100. So yeah, we're kind of like right here between 100 and 200 right now as far as positive cases. So I don't know. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And so, like Josh Green, right? Everybody heard. I don't know if you guys watch the news or anything. It's Josh Green, he got tested positive, and he's been. I know he's been, like, he always travels to like the neighbor islands and stuff. And he works in the ER, right? He's an ER. He's an ER doctor, right? Well, he didn't get it from from the hospital. He got well, they suspect he got it because from his office. So there's a sheriff's a deputy, right? Sheriff deputy. Um, yeah, right here. So he got tested positive. So then the whole office, Josh Green's entire office, had to get tested, and then so Josh Green came up positive. So he's self isolating and in quarantine at his house now. So I don't know if he's had any symptoms. Like a lot of, like, most people don't get symptoms. So he's positive, but I don't. He's in quarantine because he doesn't want to spread it. But it's not. I don't think he's sick, and hopefully he doesn't get sick. Um, so yeah, I mean that's. I guess that shows like just, and I'm pretty sure like the. Well, I don't know. I don't know why the deputy got tested. Maybe they get tested regularly. He might be non-symptomatic too, and just did a routine test and he showed up positive, and then everybody has to get positive. So it shows kind of how easy it is to get it, how to catch the disease. So yeah, I mean that's kind of serious, right? So, well, I don't know. It's kind of funny too because I think yesterday Josh Green was saying like Hawaii should be reopened for visitors, right? Like get the economy going, bring tourists back, and um, I don't know now. right? Now that he has it, it's again because it's so easily transmitted. Um, you kind of have to. I mean, there has to be a better plan to reopen. I think that's the biggest issue. Like we can reopen, but there has to be a plan, right, to reopen safely. And I think the businesses that were following the guidelines and they went above and beyond. Um, I don't think there was a problem there. It was those places that did uh, the bare minimum or not even the bare minimum, and stuff happened. So um, I don't think it's right to punish, because I think the disease is definitely manageable um, in daily life. It's just that everybody has to do it, and if one person doesn't do it, or one business doesn't do it, um, then that's when we see these spikes, right? Because one person can infect like three people, and then those three can infect, each person can now infect three more people, so it's, yeah, nine more people, and then it just spreads like crazy. So hopefully everybody kind of takes this seriously. There's definitely a way to live with the disease, because it's not something that can wipe out, or like it. We see the spike, we lock everybody down, and then the numbers go down, right? So it is definitely spread by our behavior, and um, that's something that we control, right? We control our own behavior. So I think it's definitely something that we can live with. It's just having the right guidelines, and then it's just a matter of having the government do their part without interfering with business. Like, I mean, if a business is doing everything right, then there's no reason why the government should shut them down. The government should shut down those businesses or arrest people who are not doing things correctly, right? Um, but again, that's a political philosophy, like who controls what. Should you know should government control everything that we do, or should government not control everything that we do? Or should it be somewhere in the middle, right? So anyway, that's where we are right now. Who knows when we're going to reopen? We're what is it? We're day 15, 16. I can't remember. What did my screen say? uh, yeah, so we're day 16. So anyway, yeah, so that's the latest update. Um, I hope everybody does. It's good to keep on top of this, um, just so that you can make the best decision possible for yourself, and that when decisions get passed down to you, you kind of understand why it's happening. So keeping track of at least the COVID um, numbers is important to me. Um, and again, the other thing that we're celebrating today, or not celebrating, but memorializing today, is the tragedy of 9/11. And so, and I still remember that day vividly, waking up and turning on the news and thinking, like, what movie is that playing? And it turns out it wasn't a movie, and then to see the plane actually fly into the tower, that was very surreal. And yeah, I think everybody was in shock. And then to see the towers actually collapse, that was um, yeah, that was rough. That was tough. It was kind of like the space shuttle exploding. Just very surreal, like Like you're wondering if that's real or not, and it turned out to be real. So that was a real threat. Um, so luckily, we haven't had anything like that happen since then, and hopefully, nothing like that ever happens again. So yeah, so today is memorializing the tragedy of 9/11. So um, okay, so anyway, I don't know if the audio played the last time. Which I rewatched the video. I was like, "Where's the audio?" Let me shrink myself down here. It's the Dune trailer, and I love the original Dune movie. I did not read the books. Uh, it's a series of books, and it's kind of a space opera. Um, from the original movie, people think of it as just on this deserted island. I mean, deserted this desert planet, but it actually is like a galaxy-wide thing. And the celebrities, the actors, they got big name actors. Look, that was Poe Dameron from Star Wars. um, Thanos was the guy training him. And then, of course, Aquaman's in it. There's Aquaman. And there's, what's his name from Guardians of the Galaxy? Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get busted for showing the whole thing. But yeah, that's Dune. I'm excited. Excited for that. And of course, there's from Spider Man. Uh, so yeah, that hopefully the audio goes through on that. So anyway, so I'm totally getting into Raised by Wolves. Last episode that I reviewed yesterday was really good, right? Episode 4, Nature's Course, and that was aptly named, and it covered a lot of things that I could relate to because it was a lot about survival and what do you need to do um, to survive, right? Like, how do you prioritize things, and are you willing to do things even if you don't want to do it to survive? So this episode was really good, and I was waiting for an episode like this to show up. So this episode is called Infected Memory, right? And so it starts off with the mysterious host. I don't know what to call him. It's like the Phantom, I guess, is what you'd call it. But within the episode, Marcus ends up calling him, our mysterious host. We don't know who or what it is. All we know is that it's lurking around the planet, right? We don't know if it's a human. We don't know if it's an alien. Uh, we don't know if it's an android, which I don't know. I kind of suspect it might be an android. Um, and we'll go over that why, because this has a lot of revelations in this episode. Um, so let's see. So so in this episode, they find the object, right? So we don't. In last episode, they found the object, and we're just kind of camping out. Um, Nobody wanted to destroy it because it's like a holy relic that they think. Then I mean they're on a new planet, so it's kind of strange that this relic would be there. But they see it as a sign of soul, and so the Mithraic people kind of just sat there like looking at it, Um, what happens though is Ambrose, who's the head cleric, he conspires to kill off Marcus. He thinks something's up with Marcus. Marcus is kind of a threat to his power. Um, and so he plants this thing that kind of sends like a loud I don't know, frequency or something into his head, and people think he was going crazy. And then Ambrose's android was ready to shoot him, right? But Sue ends up shooting the android, and um, Marcus, it's revealed like, hey, he had this thing in his ear. Somebody planted it there, and he's not crazy, but somebody, and they think the android was the one that killed him. But I think the Ambrose was the one who ordered the android, because androids just follow orders, right? To do that. So uh, what happens is basically Marcus ends up killing Ambrose. It's in the middle of the night. It's cold. The the structure um, normally gives off heat, and it stopped, and so they were freezing to death. So Ambrose wanted to desecrate the object uh, to get inside or to find some warmth. And Marcus sees that opportunity to tell basically declare like, hey, this guy is he's not faithful. He's lost his faith. Um, and then the guy attacks Marcus, and then Marcus ends up killing him. So so Marcus seizes control in this episode. You can see like Marcus is seizing control. He's got the backing of the soldiers, and the other people are the clerics, and they kind of fall in line. So Marcus is now the leader, um, and because he heard something, supposedly the voice of Saul. He heard something, like we didn't hear it. We didn't hear anything understandable. We heard like whispers, but because he heard the voice of Saul, they think he's a prophet. So everybody kind of falls in line and follows Marcus. And we didn't see anything else about that. There's nothing else about that object. We never got any information. So maybe they'll revisit it in a future episode, and we'll find out what exactly that object is. Because they're in a desert, it leads me to believe like that's like the top of something. Maybe like there's a city under here, because you can see like there's a rock right here, right? If you look at the right hand side, what is it right there? Uh, there's a rock, and it's kind of similar to like the rock of this object. So it could be like just like the top of a building or something like that. There was probably some civilization. I don't know. I'm just speculating. So that's kind of what I suspect there, and we'll probably get more information in future episodes. So anyway, so he wants to save the children, so he kind of organizes everybody to leave the object and go find the children. And so at the ending of last episode, we see Tempest, and Tempest is this girl right here, right? That's Tempest. So she's pregnant, and she's the one who actually kills the creature. Like the father tried to get the other kids to do it. Nobody could do it. But she ends up killing it, and then discovers that, hey, it's actually pregnant. But anyway, looks like they cooked it up, and they're all like looking at it and just what who they determined that it was edible, so it's safe to eat. Um, So, but they're hungry, right? They can't eat the carbos, so they're gonna have to eat the meat, and they do eat it, and they say it tastes like pork. Uh, um, Campion, on the other hand, though, Campion is this. Shoot, I can't point at him. This guy, he won't eat it. He's yeah, he won't. Right now, as far as we know, he's a vegetarian, right? He's a vegan. So all he wants to do is eat the carbos. Um, at least they didn't say it tasted like chicken, because that's what I was expecting them to say, that it tastes like chicken. And there's a lot of again, they're the kids are all, like, other than Campion, they're all Mithraic, so they're religious, right? There's a lot of religions out there that prohibit the eating of pork, right? So it's kind of weird that well, it's not weird. It was just kind of interesting that they chose to say that it tasted like pork instead of like chicken. But yeah, so so as the Mithraic group goes looking for the children, they come across another portion of the ark that broke apart when it crashed, and so they stumble across this, which is it looks like a mirror, but it's actually a power cell for the engine, and basically it gathers light and it produces energy, and enough energy to power the spaceship, right? So it's very powerful. So Marcus decides, hey, we should take this along with us, and maybe we can use it against the necromancer, right? Because they don't really have a weapon that can harm or injure or even destroy Mother when she turns into the necromancer mode. So they pick that up, right, and take it with them. That's kind of cool, and it has another significance too at the end, and we'll go over that. Um, but when he finds this, he's with Cassia, and so this is kind of interesting, and it kind of uh, foreshadows, I think, some of the things that's going to happen uh, now that Marcus is in power. There's some benefits that go along with being in power, and there's also the possibility of being corrupted. And so Cassia, uh, she's kind of strange, uh, but you get the feeling like she's one of those fan girls, like if you're a celebrity or if you're in a position of power, that she kind of like um, will flirt with you and try to be with you. And so I kind of get that feeling in this episode, um, that she might be the temptress, like in future episodes, that gets between Marcus and Sue. So that's her. That was an introduction to her. And this is Lucius. So Lucius uh, is becoming Marcus's right hand man. So he's the one when Ambrose died. Um, the next cleric in line kind of stood up and said, "Hey, what makes you, who put you in charge?" And so Lucius was the one who stood up for Marcus, and basically got everybody to um, kind of fall in line, like, to follow Marcus. He's the one that claimed that Marcus was a prophet, and and I think in episode 1 or 2, we kind of get a hint that there's some connection between Marcus and Lucius, and basically Marcus, the origin. Remember, Marcus is the current Marcus. He's an imposter, right? the original Marcus served in the war with Lucius's father, and something happened, and Lucius. So Marcus said that everything is forgiven, and that his father was a good man, and so Lucius really appreciated that, and we don't know what happened, and I don't think even Marcus knows what happened, but after that, Lucius was basically a loyal follower of Marcus, and I think he's going to be like Marcus's right hand man and second in command next to Sue. So I think that's he's going to become another kind of main side character in future episodes. So this is Lucius. So in last episode, Father was trying to figure out ways to make himself useful, right? Because Mother's usefulness is very clear, right? She turns into Necromancer. She can defend the children. She's the ultimate defender, right? The ultimate protector. Um, Father, on the other hand, he's kind of just a generic android who doesn't really have any other special abilities other than, he takes care of the kids and teaches them stuff, and um, he has a really good relationship with the kids. But as he goes through this struggle of finding his purpose, there, um, there's some conflict within him, which is kind of interesting because he's an android, right? Like normally androids, robots don't really have internal strife, but he does. He wants to serve a purpose, and so he comes up with all these things that he has to do and that he has to teach the kids to be useful. There's things that Mother could do more efficiently, but he's like, no, 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 let me do it. I want to be useful. So basically, after they killed the creature and they can eat the meat. He's like, okay, I'm going to teach you guys how to hunt. And the strange thing is he's going to teach them. He teaches them with a sling and a rock, which to me, like for kids, that's probably one of the harder methods of hunting, right? Like it has a reference to like David and Goliath, right? David used the sling and he slayed Goliath with a rock. So I don't know if that's why they used that in here. But I would think like just using a spear, like teaching them, how to hunt with a spear probably is more efficient. But anyway, so he teaches them how to make their own slings, and like he teaches them how to go and pick the right kind of rocks and stuff like that, and then he's going to teach them how to sling the rock. So that's his way of making himself useful. And the other thing that's kind of interesting, as I was looking at this screenshot, I'm like, this is on an alien planet, right? They're on Kepler 22b. That kind of looks like aloe, right? I think my neighbor has like some that are this big, growing on the sidewalk. But yeah, that looks like aloe to me. um, and I mean, Father's not the only one who's questioning himself. Mother also, I think she's struggling with Father's usefulness in this episode. It's not like Father screws up. It's just things just happen, right? Kids get into trouble, and things just happen, and she blames Father because he's not capable of preventing these things from happening, which it's to me it's kind of unfair. I don't think, like, basically if Mother was around, like something if something were to happen, she would just basically wipe out everything, because that's what she does, right? She's an her her abilities is just completely destructive. Um, Whereas, like father, he has to figure out ways to overcome problems instead of just destroying the problem. And so that's kind of the difference there between mother and father. Um, the other thing is like, um, and this was kind of uh, significant. The discussion between father and mother is that father was trying to find his usefulness, and he was trying to explain that to her. But at the same time, uh, one of his missions, one of his primary programming, is to make mother happy, and that's kind of a weird thing to program a robot, right? To keep the other robot happy, and we'll I mean, it made more sense, at the end of the episode. But when he said that, it was just kind of weird. Like, why would a robot be programmed to, it, try to make the other robot happy? And and so even mother has a hard time dealing with that. She's like, happiness. That's a human thing, right? That's not a that's not a logical thing. So like, so the question is why is father concerned about mother's happiness? Like, why is that his main programming? um, and it's weird that father was programmed to ensure happiness, right, for somebody, but mother wasn't. That's kind of weird. Like, you would think they would get the same programming, but yeah, mother just doesn't get it. Um, so then we go back to the Mithraic group, and so they're in that crash portion of the arc, and they come across this guy, and this guy's Otho. So a couple of episodes ago, we find out Tempest, one of the girls, she's pregnant, and the reason how she got pregnant is, um, this guy was going around while everybody was in suspended animation, right? Uh, he was going around abusing people, and so that's how uh, Tempest got pregnant, and he was sentenced to die. I mean, so he was found out, and he was sentenced to die. So he's actually a prisoner aboard the Ark when it crashed, and so that helmet is his prison. So they don't. I guess they don't have like a brig, or they don't have like a jail section on the ship. They just have this hat, and they also have an android. So the android is connected, uh, wirelessly connected to the helmet, and basically, like, if he does anything bad, or he tries to take the helmet off, or he tries to run away from the android, the helmet will crush his head. And I was like, wow, that's pretty efficient. That's that's. I mean, it sucks that he has to wear the helmet, and apparently, like, he can see through the helmet a little bit. Like, I don't think he can see details, but they indicate like he can see through it somehow. But there's no holes in it, so I don't know. I don't know how he sees. I don't know how he eats. Um, I, you know, I, he can't take it off, right? It's supposed to crush his head if he tries to take it off. So I mean, it's kind of a cruel method of punishment, but again, like, this guy deserves it, right? Um, so anyway, the guards are beating him up and everything. And this is kind of an interesting thing. We see this in other science fiction movies. There's always a criminal, right? Like Lost in Space, for example. You had the evil scientist terrorist guy. Um, Battlestar Galactica, you had like criminals and stuff like that that were kind of integral to the story, right? I think it was a doctor in Battlestar Galactica. Um, a lot of sci-fi shows have some kind of criminal that plays an important role in the story. So this is Otho. Oh, and so the so the robot, and this is kind of funny. The robot who is his like warden, uh, his name is Leash, and it's an acronym. It's of course it's an acronym, right? It's limiting emergency automated servo habit. That makes no sense to me. That I guess it was kind of hard to come up with a decent acronym for that, but yeah, his name is Leash. I don't know. And so basically, he has to stay with Otho all the time. If Otho gets too far away from Leash, crushes his head. Yeah, so that was kind of a weird name for the robot. So I think he's gonna play a big role. They hint already, like there's a reason why he's there, and it's linked to Marcus. Um, so basically, Marcus has heard the voice of Saul. Um, he doesn't know what to make of it because he's actually an atheist, right? Marcus is actually an imposter. He's not a Mithraic. He's actually an atheist. In his mind, it cannot be a deity, right? It cannot be an angel. It cannot, there's got to be an explanation for it, but he has no idea what it is. Um, this guy's a cleric. He's a high-ranking cleric official. So the voices that he hears in his head, he thinks it's Saul telling him to do things that he was doing. So I think Marcus keeps him alive because he wants to try and figure out, because this is another guy that hears voices. So he wants to figure out, like, okay, well, what's going on? And maybe this guy can give him some answers. So I think that's why he keeps Otho alive. Because other than that, there's no reason to keep him alive, right? I mean, you're in a survival situation, and you have limited resources, limited food, limited water. Why would you bring a prisoner along with you who was condemned to death already, sentenced to death already? So I think that's the reason why he's kept alive. So after they so they stay there the night, and then they move on to continue looking for the children. Okay, so this scene was kind of important. This is when father takes the kids out to go hunting. So everybody has their sling, and they find Campion and Paul are partners. They're hanging out together, and they come across this pit, and they see one of the creatures scurrying along the wall, and they're like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna get him, right?" So Paul tries to use the sling and hit him, and he misses. Campion does not want to kill these creatures for whatever reason, so he kind of like delays things as Paul was trying to get another shot off. Campion kind of like distracted him, and then the creature scurried off and got away. But what they notice is that the creature was actually eating these plants. They're fungus on the side of the pit walls, and so they kind of work together in a very dangerous way to try and get some of it so that they can test it out and see if it's edible. And remember, like, mother and father do not want anything to happen to Campion. And Campion knows that. So he forms this bond with Paul, that Paul is not going to tell anybody that where they got the fungus and how how dangerous it was for Campion to go get it, because they know that mother and father are going to be upset. So they kind of form this bond, and that's really interesting because I think Campion and Paul are going to be very pivotal in this series. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term "raised by wolves." So that comes from the creation of the Roman Empire, right? There's a legend of two of twin brothers who are um, raised by a she wolf, and one of the brothers actually um, founds the Roman Empire, creates the Roman Empire. And you can take a look at it on Wikipedia. I kind of did some research on that, and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. And the movie and this series kind of takes a lot of um, kind of like plot points off of it, right? So I think Campion and Paul are kind of like the twin brothers, and they're going to be very pivotal in what happens um, in the creation of this new human society that gets created. And so they're kind of forming this bond, and it's more than just hey, I trust you, or hey, I like you. Uh, they're both uh, they don't want to kill anything. They don't want to, they don't want to eat the meat. So they're gonna pick the fungus and eat the fungus, basically. And we also know, like, there's something special about Campion. We don't know exactly what yet, but there's something special about him. He didn't die from the carbos. He's the only one who didn't die from the carbos. And then there's something also special about Paul too that we don't really know yet. Um, but he in the simulation, during the flight over, uh, when everybody was in suspended animation, he was drawing this big city, in 3D. I guess that's how they draw. They draw in 3D, and so I think he's going to be like an architect or something of building the city. And there is a prophecy too about someone who of an orphan that leads people to a place where they're going to build the city. And he doesn't know that he's an orphan because he thinks his parents are still alive, but his parents, Marcus and Sue, they're imposters. They actually killed his real parents, so he's actually an orphan. So that's kind of interesting. I kind of want to see where they're going to go with that. um oh, and another thing too is, and of course, like whenever in these kinds of TV shows, whenever they create a strong bond between two characters early on, something's bad gonna happen, right? So, uh, you know, it, in the legend, raised by wolves, it's basically Remus and Romulus. Um, One of them actually gets killed by the brother, by the other one. So, you guys could go look it up, read the story, and you need to determine for yourself, like, who's Remus and who's Romulus. Um, so I thought that was kind of interesting, and it makes it more interesting if that's the direction they're going to go, um, because you want to see like how it plays out, right? So there's the creature who was eating the fungus, and apparently it can climb the walls no problem. Um, it kind of looks human, right? It has like human features, even has like human type ears. It's got fingers and toes. It's kind of emaciated, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, but they ate him, so well, the other kids ate him. So hopefully it's not human, right? Or else they'd be cannibals. Uh, Okay, this is where the title of this episode comes from. So this the title of this episode is Infected Memory. And so basically what happens is Mother is out scouting. She's in necromancer mode and she's flying around and she's scouting the forest and she spots Tally. Right? In last episode, Father thought he saw Tally and he heard Tally's voice. But he didn't tell Mother. He wasn't sure. It wasn't, he didn't clearly see who it was. Well, Mother actually clearly sees Tally, and that's kind of strange, right? That's kind of weird. And at first, I was like, are they hallucinating this? Because she didn't age at all. She's still a little girl. Um, but like, yeah, androids don't hallucinate. So, um, and Paul also saw Tally. So, and he's a human, right? So yeah, that's kind of weird. So basically, she flies down, follows her. Tally's like running around and basically trying to lead her somewhere. And Tally eventually leads Mother to the same crashed capsule that she was in the last episode. Um, the capsule is it's like a stasis pod. When you're flying over, you go to sleep in the stasis pod. It suspends your body, so you don't age, and then your mind goes into a simulator or like a virtual world. So so Mother then lies down and plugs herself in, and Mother knows that she's being led there because when she finds the capsule, it has Tally's doll lying in the capsule. So so that's why she ends up plugging herself into the sim. And this is kind of neat. I don't know what these symbols indicate. I would think like this is like medicine. The sun is the Mithraic. I think soul is like the god of the sun. You got warrior stuff. I don't know, farming stuff, and I don't know what those symbols mean. We'll probably figure that out later on. But the M you can see for the Mithraic religion, you got this M. It's built into the construct. It's kind of cool. Um, so what happens when she plugs herself in? She sees Tally in the simulator. So that's kind of weird too. Like, how can Tally be in the real world and also be in the simulated world? And within the simulated world, Tally leads Mother to basically an archived memory that Mother never knew she had, and that's the infected memory part. Um, So basically, what we learn, what Mother witnesses, she basically relives these memories that she never knew she had, and it's how she was created. So basically, she was a necromancer, uh, and the necromancer are, uh, I think they're androids for the Mithraic army. So they're there to kill off all the atheists. Um, so this guy we see here, who's operating on her, he happens to be named Campion. That's Campion Sturgis. And we find out like he is the son of some wealthy Mithraic clerics, um, who turns into uh, he renounces soul. He becomes a technocrat. Basically, he becomes a hacker, and he becomes a wanted man. So he's like one of the most wanted men on Earth, and he is able to uh, disable the Necromancer and capture it, and then he tries to reprogram it, and of course he's successful because we know that it turns out to be Mother. So Mother is like, when she first sees this happening, she knows that it's her, and she's like, I have no memory of this. Like, why don't I have any memory of this? But as she watches it, um, she has some revelations about herself. So this is kind of uh, her finding out her history that she never knew she had. And of course, we all know, like, the reason why he's doing that is because he wants Mother to basically save the human race. He's gonna smuggle her. He's gonna fly her out with Father and the embryos, and she's gonna give birth to the children, and then she's supposed to take care and protect the children. Um, but it's kind of interesting. So she's very, as he's working on her. So the first thing he does is remove the eyes. So he knows, like, the eyes is the secret to her power. Without the eyes, she cannot turn into the Necromancer mode. So he removes her eyes, and then what he's doing right now is he, uh, he's like trying to find how to reprogram her. So he's disabling some parts and activating some parts and putting in new code and stuff like that. And as he continues to reprogram her, he comes up with this test, and I think the test is more important than what we think. So basically, after he's done reprogramming her, she still doesn't have her eyes, but he lets her sit up, and he brings in this tray with this baby in it, and he's programmed her to be like a mother. So she's like, oh, I feel compelled to hold the baby and take care of it and nurture it. And so he's like, okay. So he gives her the baby, and she's she's holding it gently, and she has a smile on her face. And then he starts telling her about the baby, like, oh, where'd you find? She asks him, well, where'd you find the baby? And he's like, oh, I found this baby. The parents got killed. They were atheists. And all of a sudden, her face changes. Because again, right, she's programmed to kill all the atheists. And then she ends up killing the baby. But it's not a real baby. It was just a test. And it turns out to be an android. So that was just a test. I think the significance of that is, that scene reminded me of when Campion was born in episode 1, and he was stillborn. And remember how she said that she told Father was like, okay, we need to dispose of it. And she's like, no, I just want to hold it. Right? I want to hold it. And so that was I kind of got that same feeling in this scene, even though she didn't kill Campion, right? Because of course she was successfully reprogrammed at that point. But the other thing that's significant is that this Campion can create baby androids that look real. So is Campion, the child, an android version of the adult Campion? I don't know. I mean, there's something special about the child Campion, right? The other thing is, if he has other androids, right? we only saw father and mother on the spaceship. What if there was another one? What if there was another android on the spaceship? And the host is actually another android. And we find out like the android is watching the camp. It's watching the children and it's watching mother and father. But we don't know exactly like why it's doing that, because we don't even know, what the host is. But what if it came from their ship? Because remember, the ship crashed into the hole, and mother and father came out. But they could have. I mean, it could have been stuck in the ship, right, and just came out afterwards. I don't know. We don't know. But anyway, that was when I saw that scene. I was like, okay, we might be missing out on some things here that they're going to reveal later on. So yeah. So basically, in the final test, he does something similar. After he completes all of the reprogramming, he he releases mother from her restraints, and he gives her back her eyes. And basically that's the final test. And the reason is because the Earth is dying, and we didn't really know like how the Earth died in the previous episodes. We just know like everybody had to leave the Earth. Well, in this episode, we find out there's announcements being blared on loudspeakers that certain areas the oxygen levels are not suitable for human survival. And so in the beginning, when he first starts programming mother, you can see like there's some vegetation here. There's some plants. Well, by the time he's done working on her, all those plants are dead. And you see here, he's not wearing any kind of a mask. Well, he's wearing like an oxygen mask at the end, and he looks pretty sick. So we know like, okay, the Earth is dying. That was their way. That was the show's way of telling us, kids, a certain amount of time has passed and the Earth is on its last legs, and he needs to complete this mission, right? I think the other thing with the eyes. So the thing that always confused me is why does mother not want to keep her original eyes? Like, why did she take the eyes from the other androids, and why does she use those eyes? And only when she wants to go into necromancer mode, she puts in her original eyes. That's kind of strange, right? And it's like very inefficient too. So for an android to do that, it's kind of weird. Well, I think it stems from this scene where the final test is when he gives her back her eyes and she doesn't kill him, right? So she knows like before that she was dangerous with those eyes, that she would like, she would just kill people indiscriminately. And so I think that's where this is kind of an irrational fear comes in, and it stems from this repressed memory that she has. So she's not really sure why she's doing it, but yeah. So she likes, for whatever reason, she thinks she's safer to everybody else. I don't think she does it for herself. For the kids, I think she thinks it's safer if she doesn't have the necromancer eyes in her all the time. So that was kind of a pivotal scene there, and it was kind of a long segment too. This whole memory scene was the majority of the episode. And so finally, this happens. Yeah, they did that, which is weird, right? Uh, so basically, and we don't know how much time passed as he was reprogramming her, uh, but he gets to see her completely taken apart, right? And he knows her inside and out, literally, because he's reprogramming her. And so both he and she become close, and she's no longer a war machine, right? So she's has this kind of mother programming in her. Uh, so I guess she's able to fall in love, and yeah, and so I guess they fall in love. I don't know. Um, that was just that was kind of strange. Not strange that, oh, like, well, it is strange, right? It is strange for a robot to fall in love with a human and a human to fall in love with a robot. But I guess what I think the reason why they have this scene is to show that the artificial intelligence is real intelligence, and there's not much distinction between a like these are considered like people too, right? I mean, like Campion doesn't want mother and father to die because he thinks like once they die they just end, their soul won't go to the afterlife or whatever. um, so I think this scene kind of shows like the androids have this capability to be more than just being an android, and that was a theme that was touched upon in the last episode. And yeah, so they end up falling in love, and then she actually has like um, some pain, right? Her heart was breaking when he told her that she has to leave and he can't go along with her because he's not going to survive the trip. Um, so she's she becomes heartbroken. Yeah. So and that's why he wipes her memory. It doesn't wipe her memory, he archives the memory. So the memory was still there, it just wasn't readily accessible, and she was led to these memories by Tally. So that's, you get the feeling like, okay, Campion Sturgis is still around, even though physically he might not be there. There's, he's still there, because who else knows about these memories, right? Who else would know that she has these memories in her? um, so yeah. um, and then of course after this scene we see the spaceship, we see father in it, and then we know what happens after that. um, oh, so right as she's about to leave, uh, so again, like this is the memory version of mother. The actual mother's consciousness or whatever is actually watching this. She's a third party, kind of like a ghost figure. But anyway, as she's watching this, she hears, I believe it's Campion Sturgis's voice telling her to wake up, and that one of the children is in danger. And that's how she wakes up from the sim, and then she rushes back to the camp. So again, that's right, there's something going on there. There's some other intelligence going on that is watching them, watching everybody, and is able to communicate, um, or not communicate, how do you interfere, right? Because there's an interference there, uh, and giving instruction to mother, warning her that something's going on in the camp. And again, that that's kind of what happened with Marcus when he heard the voices, right? So it's happening on both sides, and that's really interesting. One, of course, is framed in a religious context, and the other thing with Mother is framed in a technology context, right? So that's kind of interesting. So basically, Mother gets home and she finds Tempest passed out on the ground, and she was trying to kill herself. And the baby, she tried to, I think she was eating the pits of the carbos, and Mother ends up saving her. And so again, that's another thing. Father didn't know, right? Nobody warned Father. As far as he knows, Tempest is fine. She's sleeping in the shelter, and everything's good. And then, of course, Mother rushes home with this knowledge and finds Tempest is had attempted suicide. So so that calls into question again Father's usefulness in the group, and that there's this tension between Mother and Father. So then finally, after that whole memory segment, we go back to the Mithraic people, and they're tracking the children's trackers, and they come across this giant the remains of this giant kind of snake creature, right? Which might be like a dragon, because right, snakes don't have bones like that, right? Anyway, they find this this place. It turns out to be a camp. It turns out to be the hideout for the host. And so some things we can determine about the host. The host is intelligent. So it's not a creature, right? It's not an animal. It's a person. It's some kind of intelligent creature. So basically, you can see here the host found the trackers that Mother had dumped down the pit and fashioned it into a necklace. So there's some artistic qualities, right, about the host. The other thing is that the host set up booby traps that almost killed one of the soldiers. So again, like that shows like the host knows that there's other people around, and that its hideout could be infiltrated. So it has the ability to plan, right, and create these booby traps. And it seems to have stolen some other things, including these cards. And normally, like, these cards, I mean, maybe they have some Mithraic significance, but why would a alien creature put any kind of significance to that? But it does, and as he's looking at it, the host actually is in the camp and jumps in and grabs the cards out of his hands and then runs away. So there's some significance to these cards here, which I don't know. Like this could be like the family, father and mother, and then the children, right? Some kind of a star with a spiral in it. I don't know what this is. This kind of looks like reproduction, right? Like sperm or something, tadpoles. So yeah, there's some significance to these cards. We don't know what it is yet, but we know that it was important to the host that it risked itself, revealing itself and taking it out of Marcus's hands and then running away. Uh, Another thing that shows the intelligence of the host is that it actually created this map. So this is a map of the surrounding area, and this is the camp where the kids are at. And he actually created these little figures of the people in the camp. So Marcus and Sue, they're looking at this. They're like, "Hey, that looks familiar, man. That looks like the camp that we were at." So that's deepens the mystery of who or what the host is. So after Mother saves Tempest, she's preparing supper with Father, and she's happy. She's like giddy, and that's kind of weird because you never ever see her showing positive emotion. Usually it's Father, right, that is telling jokes and kind of has a sense of humor and looking very light. Well, in this episode, Father's very serious and concerned, and Mother all of a sudden is very happy. And I think part of it is because she's remembering the feeling of being in love with Campion Sturgis, but she doesn't tell Father. So again, like, she keeps secrets, Father doesn't. So that's kind of the difference between the two androids, and we saw that in the last episode, right? The other thing is that she starts talking about. She says that she has a good feeling about this, that if they continue on with their mission, she can see a good future for them. And that's kind of a weird thing for an android to say. And that's a weird thing for an atheist to say, because it's showing that there's a belief in something that's giving you hope in the future, and you don't really have any logical or rational reason to feel that way. So I think she was just feeling happy because she was remembering her memories. But Father is like, okay, you're sounding like you're a believer. So again, like, we know you can't be a total non-believer, and you can't, well, some of us are, but usually there's this area in between where you can be a non-believer and a believer at the same time, and I think that's what they're kind of showing in this scene. But Father is definitely confused by her belief, and he's starting to get concerned because she's not telling him anything. And then again, we see this relationship with this bond between Campion and Paul, where they're at the dinner table. The kids are going to eat the meat, and they're all proud of themselves. Campion and Paul are proud of themselves for getting the fungus, and the fungus is safe to eat. So they're like, we're not going to eat any meat. We're just going to eat the fungus, so that we don't need to kill anything. So I think what it's doing, this is, and maybe I'm just a cynic when it comes to these kinds of things, but when I see this happen early on in a series, and it's made, like it's being shoved down your throat, it's basically showing like, okay, Campion and Paul have this bond, and again, they don't want to kill anything, so they're the epitome of peace and non-violence and like pacifism. That foreshadows like there's gonna be something terrible, like a terrible war, or there'd be a lot of people dying, right? There's gonna be a lot of violence coming up in the future, Uh, that's what I think. I don't know. That's usually when I see these kinds of TV shows or movies or read these kinds of stories. That's what normally happens. So I'm bracing myself for the inevitability of extreme violence caused by these two these two kids. Um, so finally, we go back and Marcus again. There's this strange, like people don't understand why are you keeping Otho alive, and here we see Marcus talking to Otho about the voices that he hears. And basically, he's trying to determine if Otho is actually hearing Saul or if he's just nuts. And from the answers that Otho gives him, Marcus determines he's nuts. But that's not what he wants to hear, because if Otho hears things because he's crazy, then that could be happening to Marcus as well. Um, and it's not helped in the next scene. In the next scene, he is making love to Sue, and as he's making love with her, he has this vision. And the vision is he's holding the scalpel that Mother created from the medallions, right? In the last episode, she used that to remove the tracking devices from the children's feet. Well, he's holding it in his vision. He's holding it, and Sue has a puncture wound in her chest, and they're covered with blood. And to top it all off, the mirror, I guess, is next to the bedroom, or next to the bed. He looks into the mirror. He sees a reflection of himself wearing the helmet that Otho is wearing. So again, this is like foreshadowing something that's not good. It's going to be bad. That happens to Marcus. And then finally, they go out the next day. They wake up and they go out. They find the footsteps of where Campion and Paul by the pit where they found the fungus, and so they're like, "Hey, we're close." And eventually, they make their way to the camp, and then they can see, everybody training with Father, how to use the slings. So they finally found the kids. So, and I think in episode 6, we might actually see a confrontation between the Mithraic and the androids again. We don't know how they're going to approach this. They might use the mirror, but there's bound to be a confrontation as Marcus and Sue try to get Paul back. So that's episode 5. There was a lot of stuff going on in it. That memory scene that shows the origin of Mother, that was really, really cool, and it explains a lot. And I really like the character of Campion Sturgis. And again, that mysterious host and Tally, I think it has something to do with Campion Sturgis, but we don't know. We'll have to see in the next episodes. The next episodes come out on Thursday, and I'm hoping they release 2 episodes at the same time again. So yeah. So that's about it for this episode. Hope everybody has a good night. Stay safe this weekend. I'll see you tomorrow. I think I'm going to do a review of Cobra Kai season 1. So it won't be an episode by episode. It'll, because I already watched the entire season, so it'll just be my thoughts on season one, which I thought was really really good, and highly recommend. It's good for the whole family. So that's the season one of Cobra Kai. So anyway, thanks for hanging out, and yes, see you tomorrow.